Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Java programming language course. So in previous tutorial we learned how date works as well as some other useful things about Java. In this new tutorial we will start with array lists. Okay? So an array list is a kind of resizable array, which basically enables us to use memory more efficiently. This means this will grow as we need more space, right? So that's basically the difference between an array and array list. To use an array list, we have to import the Arraylist class. So you're gonna say import java.util dot array list. Okay, great. Now that we have imported the array list class, what we have to do, we'll have to do the following. We will define an array list. To define an array list, we will type array list. In this case, let's define a list of strings, right? So we're going to say string. And I will call these, for example, fruits or colors or whatever the case may be. Okay, let's call it fruits. Okay, and we will assign that to new array list. Okay, which will be set also to string, right? So new array list and to string, as you can see. So that's how we create a new array list. Now we can create it inside the main method or outside the main method, whatever we want to do it, right? So once that we have created this, we can add items to the array list. For example, we want to say fruit, and we will write that add, and I will add orange, right? Oops, orange, right? So I add an orange, and now it will only use the elements that I'm using here, okay? So as you can see, you have a warning from a non-static field, so this requires me to use the static field. To avoid that, we will try to put this inside the method. Okay, it still needs some, no, it doesn't need. Okay, so we add an orange right here. So we're just doing this for convenience, but you can still initialize it outside the main method as we learned in one of the previous tutorials, right? So we add orange, and now we will add something else. For example, fruit that add an apple. Okay, fruits that add. Okay, we can keep adding more and more fruits, like a banana or something. So we have 3 fruits so far, right? And if we want to print the array list, we can access an item or actually print the whole array list if we want to, right? So for example, if I say system that out dot print ln, and I'll set this to fruit. Okay, so let's see what happens, right? So we go to our terminal and we will compile our file, and here we have an error right here that tells us that we have some sort of, we have to call the array list method, right? So after we initialize the array list, we put 2 parentheses, and that's how we call the array list method, okay? So let's compile it again, and now let's run it. And as you can see, it prints orange, apple, and banana, and does it using square brackets and commas to separate the elements, so we can know what elements we are using, right? So let me clear the terminal output. And now let's access an item. So what if I want to just print the first item? Okay, so to access an item, it's very simple. So let's go and print it. So I can say system.out.println, and what I'll print will be fruit. And to access an item, what I have to do is .get and pass the number of the item, for example 0, right? Which is the first item because we start counting from 0, right? So let's now compile the file and let's run it, right? So, and as you can see, only the first item is being printed. So we can also remove items from here. Okay, so if we can remove an item, for example, we can say fruit dot, and to remove an item we can do the following. We will call remove, and we will remove item 0, right? And after we remove that, we will print the array list again to check if it changed, if it has changed or not. So print ln and we'll pass fruits, right? So now we'll go to our terminal, compile, terminal run, and as you can see, in the last line of output, we don't have the orange element because we have removed it. Okay, apart from removing the element, we can also change the element, right? We can set the element, okay? So for example, we will go and say remove. Instead of remove, we will set. So you can say set. We will specify the index, for example 0, and I will set the first element to another fruit, maybe grapes, right? Okay, I will set, of course I have to define these grapes inside double quotes because it is a string, right? So now we set the 0th element, or the first element in this case, to grapes. So if we go again, you can see orange, apple, banana, then we print the first one, then we change the first one to grapes. We change orange to grapes. So that's how we add, how we remove, and how we change an item. We can also know the size of an array list. To get the size of an array list, we'll do the following. So we will print system.out.println, and what we will do here will be fruits.size. Okay, and now let's compile and run. And it has an error right here. It says size has private access in Arraylist. Oh, the problem here is that I forgot to call the method. So we have to put 2 parentheses after the size word. Okay, and we will do it again. And now it works. So size is 3 because we have 3 elements. Okay. Also, we can clear an array list. You know, to clear an array list, we just say fruit.clear, if I'm not wrong, right? We say fruits.clear, and we will check if it works or not. Oops, but I have to print the results, right? So we're going to say system.out.println, and I'll print fruits. Okay, so let's compile the code and let's run it again. And as you can see, it just appears an empty array list because I have cleared all the elements. Sometimes this clear is useful because you don't want to keep using the same elements, so we just clear them, right? So that's the way we can use an array list. Now, if we want to create elements in a programmatic way, we can do so too. For example, we can create a for loop. So let's say for int I equals 0, okay, I less than 100 if you want to create lots of elements, and I'll say I plus plus, right? So inside this for loop, what I will do will be the following. will be fruit dot add, and I will add the current element, which is I. The problem here is that we are sending an integer to an array that contains strings. So we want to transform this into a string, right? So to transform this into a string, we will say string dot value of, right? And we will enclose I in parentheses, okay? Oh, the O in of is uppercase, right? So now we will compile the code, we will run the code, and I know we haven't printed again, so I always forgot to print the new state of the array list. So I'm gonna say system.out.println, and I'll say fruits, right? So I'm compiling the code, I'm running the code, and as you can see, we have all the elements right here. But we don't have the fruits because we have cleared it, right? So what happens if we don't clear it? So let's comment this clear line, right? And let's run it again. Oops, what I just did. So let me compile this. Okay, and as you can see, we have the last output is grapes, apple, banana, and all the numbers we have printed, right? So this basically gives you an idea on how an array list works, right? Pretty easy, right? So this is very, very useful to avoid using memory that we don't need, right? So that's basically how an array list works. Now, what else can we learn about the Java programming language? Well, we have learned basically all of the most important things. Of course, there's stuff that we haven't learned, but that's maybe kind of advanced stuff. So something that will also be useful for us will be the ability to open files or manage files somehow. So let's learn it right now. So again, you can keep all this code, but I will clear this code in order for us to better visualize what I'm doing, right? So let's go and try to use and learn about Java files, okay? So to use files, we will import the file library. So you can say import, and we will import java.io.file, right? So this is how we import the file library. And inside the main method, we will create a new file. In this case, we call file, I will call it my file, okay? And I'll set this to new file, and maybe here I will put the file name I want to create. In this case, I will call it my file.txt, right? But because this is a string, I have to write it between double quotes, right? So my file.txt, so that's the name of the file I want to manage, create, write, or read, or whatever the case may be, right? So here we can read a file, write a file, delete a file, rename a file, do many stuff here, okay? So what can we do here is, first of all, check if the file exists or not. So we're going to say if my file that exists, okay, if it exists, we will say we will print system.out.println, and I will print the file exists, right? And if the file doesn't exist, I will print system.out.println, and I'll print the file does not exist, right? So now let's compile this program and let's run it, and it says the file does not exist, right? So what happens if we make a file? So if the file doesn't exist, we will make it. You know, we will kind of create that file, right? So we're gonna say my file that create new file, right? So we will do this, and let me check if we are using this correctly. I think it is being used correctly, but somehow we have a warning right here. Oh, it's saying us that it throws an IO exception. So if we click here and surround with try catch, we can see how this is fixed. So it creates a catch block, and then it catches the exception, right? So we have learned already how exceptions work, so this is just a reminder for us, right? So now we will, after we do this, we will check again if the file exists or not. So after we create a file, we will check again. So I'm gonna say if my file that exists, I will do system.out.println, and what I'll print will be the file was created. Okay, so exist is a method, so I have to call it as I am calling a method. And okay, this file doesn't exist, we will put this before we create a file. So we will say file doesn't exist, then we will create a file, and if it succeeds creating the file, we will say the file was created. And if for somehow it doesn't succeed, for some reason it doesn't succeed, we'll say system.out. Okay, let me check, system.out.println, and what I'll say, the file couldn't be created, right? So now we will compile the program, and now we will run it. And first it says the file does not exist, and then it says the file was created. So if we go back here in the Visual Studio Code, we can see actually the file we created, which is an empty file, right? So we have created a file right now. So that's awesome. We can also delete a file, right? So we will set the file exists, and then we will delete the file. Okay, so I'm gonna say my file that delete, right? And after we do this, we're gonna say file was deleted, right? System.out.println, and it will say file was deleted. Okay, so if the file exists, we will delete it automatically, right? So let's compile this and let's run it. And it says the file exists, and then it says file was deleted. And as you can see, it was actually deleted because we don't have it here, right? And now if the file doesn't exist, in this case, we create a file. And if it exists, we delete the file, right? So this is kind of the logic we're using right here. Okay, pretty easy. But now maybe we want to rename the file. So instead of deleting the file, we want to rename the file. So we're gonna go and say my file, and what we will do here will be that rename, if I'm not wrong. So let me check this. My file 2.txt. I don't remember really if it's rename or rename to, I think it is. So rename to. Okay, let's check if that even works. As you can see, incompatible types, a string cannot be converted to file. Oh, okay. The issue here is the following, that we have to pass the file here. So to rename to my file 2.txt, we have to say new file. Okay, and inside these we will pass my file 2.txt, right? So basically what this is doing is creating a new file and renaming it to it, basically, right? So if the file exists, we rename the file. So, and we will say system.out.println, and we will say the file was renamed, right? So let's compile the code and let's run it. And as you can see, it says the file doesn't exist, the file was created, which is exactly what we expect. And here we have my file.txt, okay? But now if we run the same program again, it says the file exists and the file was renamed. If we check right here, we can see that the file was actually renamed to my file 2. So that is how we can manage a file. But now, what if we want to read a file, right? So if we want to read a file that was already created, so let me open this my file2.txt, and I will say, I will write something here. Hello, I am a file, right? And I will save it and I will close it. And now I want to rename the file. Okay. Okay. So I will only say the file exists, right? But I want to read this file and get the contents of this file. So if the file exists, I will read it, right? So to read it, I will do the following. So we will import again the scanner library, which we use to get input from the user. So we can also use that to get file content. So we're going to say import java.util.scanner, right? So that's kind of the class we need. Okay, then we're gonna go here, and after we say the file exists, we're gonna say scanner. I will call this my scanner, and I'll set these to new scanner. And what I'll do here is I will pass the file right here, which is my file, right? So I want to scan this file. I want to get the contents of this file, right? So this warning appears again, and it's telling me basically to catch the exception. So I will catch the exception right here, and something went wrong. Let me check what it was. So yeah, here we have the scanner and the catch and try it and catch block, right? So we create the scanner, and what we do here is we will check how many lines it has, and if it has more text to read, we will keep reading it, right? Okay, so we'll do in the following way. We're going to say a string, and we'll call this string data, and here we will set to my reader that my scanner actually, sorry. So it's my scanner that next line. Okay, that next line. Okay, so this will get the next line, but I want to first check if it has a next line before doing it. So I'm gonna say while, okay, while my scanner that has next line, okay, and this is mito, so I call it. So while a scanner has next line, I will put this inside that. So I will say string data my scanner dot next line. So we store in this string variable, we store one line of the text, and after we store it, we're gonna put that out to the system. So you're gonna say system dot out dot print ln, and what we will print will be data. So after we say the file exists, we're gonna say system.out.println, and we will say the file contents are, and we will print the file contents, right? So after we've ended doing this, so after the try and catch block, what we will do here is we will close our scanner. So because we don't need it anymore. So you can say my scanner, which is is not accessible here, so I will create it outside this maybe. So let me try to check it if that's possible. So before you try, I'm gonna say scanner, and here I'm gonna say my scanner, right? I just define this here and I assign it inside the try block. And after the try block, I say my scanner dot close, which basically tells the system that we are done using this scanner and the system can now just close it, right? So that's basically how we can do this. So now let's run it to check if it works. So remember, we have this my file 2, okay? So we will also have to read my file 2 here, okay? So inside this my file 2, we have only one line. And let me switch back to the code. If I open the terminal, I'm gonna go and say, compile the code, run the, oh, oops, we have a sort of error. Oh, I have forgot to put a semicolon in this line, so never forget to do that in Java because it will cause errors. So we're gonna say javac javacode.java to compile it, and we have another one, might have not been initialized. So what he's telling me here is that he doesn't, the language doesn't know if I have initialized the scanner previously, right? So maybe it will cause a null pointer exception. So I can maybe check here and say if my scanner is different than null, okay, I will say my scanner dot close, right? So this is just to illustrate basically, okay? So you're gonna say compile, and it has not been initialized. Okay. So we have to close this inside the try block, okay? So we have to close this inside the try block. So we'll move this after the while loop. So make sure it's after the while loop. And yeah, that will fix this. Okay, so as you can see, it's fixed. And if I run, it says the file contents are hello, I am a file, right? So that's how we read a file. So to check if it is able to read more than one line, so hello, I am line 2, and I'll say hello, I am line 3, right? So if I go back here, I compile it again. I don't really have to, but well, I run it again, and here we have hello, I am file. Then it says hello, I am line 2, and then it says hello, I am line 3. So remember, we are printing the lines as long as the scanner has a next line. So in this case, it has 3 next lines, 3 lines, so it prints these 3 lines. So all the lines that it finds on the file will be printed, right? So that's basically how to use files in Java. So far we have used learned the basics of Java and the most important thing. So 95% of the time you will use all that we've learned in this Java course. And sometimes you will maybe need something else, but that is really advanced. So we this is kind of a beginner course, an introductory course. So that's why we're covering the most basic and useful features about the Java language, which, by the way, as I told you in one of the early tutorials, Java is able to run on any machine. So Java runs in what's called a Java virtual machine. So this program right here, you can run it on Linux, on Windows, on Mac, on Android, on any platform that has a Java virtual machine. So basically anywhere. And that's why Java is WORA, which means write once, run anywhere. WORA. Okay, so I think are everywhere. So write once and run everywhere. So that's what Java is. That's kind of the main advantage of Java. Okay, so that's it for this video, and that's it for this course. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in a future programming course. Thanks for watching. Bye.